Frank Schwab had the unenviable task of deciding on the all-quarter century team. I can't believe there'll be any debate about this at all because it's clear over the last 25 years who the best players at every position are. But you've listed our all-quarter century team. For anyone that hasn't seen the article out there, you should check it out. I'll give you a quick look on the offensive side of the ball. And the quick look at quarterback Tom Brady, at running back LaDainian Tomlinson and Adrian Peterson, wide receiver Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Terrell Owens. Tight end is Gronk, obviously. The offensive lineman, we got Trent Williams, Walter Jones at tackle, Zach Martin, Alan Faneca at guard, and then Kelce at center. Getting the clap from Mike. Mike, let's start. Mike, the former fat guy. What do we think of the fat guy selections by Frank here?
No, it's a beautiful group there. I mean, God, the guard tandem of Alan Faneca and Zach Martin, what you can do with those two animals flanked by the rest of this group here. No, it's an incredible group there. So just applauding the work, Frank. You have great taste in beef.
Let me ask you, because the one, there's about 3-4 positions I really struggled with. I didn't struggle with Brady. Yeah, easy. Yeah. Okay. The one I really did struggle with the most, and maybe it's my Wisconsin alumni coming out of me, was Joe Thomas versus Walter Jones. Yeah. I struggled with most of a full day. Like, I was like, I don't know. Ultimately, I just said, Walter Jones is a better player. I got to put him on the team over Joe. Although Joe, like, how do you leave Joe Thomas off a quarter century team? Do you agree with me? It's fine to disagree, because that was picking between children at that point, how good they were.
Yeah, like, I guess that's the thing with these groups is, like, if you'd have subbed Joe in, I wouldn't have had any problem with that. Like, Joe was the pass set that our coaches showed us in college to try and show you what it was like to glide and, like, how to do this at the highest level, and just, you know, forgetting just the streak of longevity, but, like, you hear Joe talk about it. I know he's part of the group that's down at O-Line Masterminds this year, and, like, he's one of those guys that you really see the master of the craft show up. I haven't had a chance to talk to Big Walt ever, but, you know, he was also a part of one of the best left sides of an offensive line I've ever seen. So that massive humanity blocking for some of the best rushing attacks in Seattle, like, you're not going to get an argument out of me against Big Walt by any stretch. So I think it's close. I think Joe Thomas does some exemplary things and did him in adverse circumstances, but I think Walter Jones is a fantastic pick.
Is there any other, I mean, so let me just troll for a second, Frank. You said it's clear for Tom Brady.
You do so well.
I mean, thank you. Tom Brady, like, it's clear over Patrick Mahomes. Like, I know we're going to talk about Super Bowls and blah 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 blah, but, like, it's still abundantly clear to you. There's no question in your mind over the last 25 years that Brady was better than Mahomes.
Yes. I mean, and that's the thing. When you do these teams, people always do well, what about? I know all of the other guys. Yes, I understand that. Yes, Chris Jones was a great defensive lineman. It's not like I forgot about him. It's not like I forgot about Tony Gonzalez at tight end or Travis Kelce at tight end. I understand those guys exist. I just picked other guys. Tom Brady's excellence, like, he basically put together 2 Hall of Fame careers, as we've talked about. The early part of his career, the first 12 years or whatever, and then that kind of second phase of his career. And I think winning with the Buccaneers put him at a completely different level, legacy-wise. He's like, all right, I'll leave the Patriots. I'm going to go win another title. Unbelievable. Like, who else has really done that in history at the top of his game? Yes, I think Brady, although I love Drew Brees. I really love Drew Brees. I will stand on a table for Drew Brees being a top 5 all-time quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is maybe the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. Peyton Manning. Why not Peyton Manning, right? But at the end of the day, how could you look at Tom Brady's resume and not make him your all-quarter century team quarterback?
Yeah, like, again, I think I did one of these, you know, a while back, and I put Mahomes over there mostly because I'm a bleepster at my core. But, you know, I'm also a sucker for that ability. When we were in the heart of the, you know, it was the GOAT and the BOAT debate when people would do that with the, you know, height of his powers, Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay or Tom Brady and who he wanted to pick. Like, that was the caveat there. It's Tom freaking Brady. Like, we've seen him in so many different circumstances. And I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, for Pat, and that's the reason he's in these conversations, is we've seen him win at the helm of offenses and teams that have looked very different in the way that Brady did as well. And I think that's always going to be the biggest calling card for Tom, is he found so many ways to be effective with so many different people around him that it's really impossible to ignore. I'll use his words, how pliable he was as a football player, in addition to the talent that maybe it didn't manifest in the ways that we're used to it now with, the extracurricular stuff, being able to run and move around. But man, all the other stuff was insane.
Unbelievable. Can I ask you guys one more? Like, are you done, Fitz? Are you done trolling me on Patrick Mahomes here? Do you really think? Are you just? I think you're just kind of being a rabble rouser here. But would you really put Patrick Mahomes ahead of Tom Brady as quarterback?
Yeah. So a buddy of mine always says that Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever seen play the game. And I think that, like, just for me, there's part of the, just to be simple in college football-y, there's part of the eye test of the way that Mahomes plays the game at times that I just feel like it's superhuman. And so there's recency bias to it.
I feel that way about Rodgers. I don't feel that, like I'm not denigrating Mahomes. Like, Mahomes is unbelievable, right? But go back and watch Aaron Rodgers. Some of the throws he made when he was at the peak of his athleticism, it's legitimately unbelievable. Like, how does a human being throw a football like that? And he was everything. His 2011 season, I've said, is the best a quarterback can ever play. Like, it was absolutely perfection. And so I have the same argument in my head. It's just, for me, it's not the best quarterback I've ever seen play. It's not Mahomes. It's probably Rodgers, to be honest. I mean, but are you choosing on that? Are you choosing on resume? And Brady's resume is you can't argue against it. He has the greatest resume of any quarterback in football history.
Yep, unassailable. You're right. Aaron Rodgers, I've always said, was Patrick Mahomes before we had Patrick Mahomes. Like, he was that guy who all of a sudden made you think about what it was capable of at that position. And now that we've gotten a more frequent influx of athletes of that caliber at the position, we're starting to kind of see some of that more frequently, which is awesome.
Now, here's one I wanted to bring up. Receiver was probably the toughest one because you had so many different options. I went with, obviously, Moss. I don't think that's controversial at all. Calvin Johnson, yes, I was going to put him on this team. I think he's just unbelievable. Like, whether he retired early or not, he's as physically gifted as any receiver I've seen. It came down to the third one. I picked Terrell Owens over Larry Fitzgerald and Antonio Brown, and that was tough. Like, I went back and forth on those three guys over and over and over again. I just said, Terrell Owens is the best I've seen out of these three guys. Larry Fitzgerald had the best stats as far as his longevity, his accomplishments, and all that. And Antonio Brown at his peak was legitimately unbelievable. Like, he almost made the team for me. Did I make the right choice with those three guys? Moss, Megatron, and T.O.?
I think so, yes. Like, again, I did this exercise a little bit ago, and I believe this was my exact trio of wide receivers. And to me, they all seemed obvious. Now, I grew up an Eagles fan in the early 2000s, so when they were making that 4 straight consecutive NFC Championship run and the Super Bowl that T.O. was instrumental in, like, all of that stuff is certainly a bias I carry in my brain. But whether it's the physical talent or the production, no, I don't think there's any issue with these three. I do think it's right to remind people that Antonio Brown, before what he has become off the field was the story, and before he left Pittsburgh, was one of the most impressive receivers. Like, that relationship between him and Ben Roethlisberger had the sort of ESP to it that very few quarterback receiver combinations in the league have ever had. But no, this is absolutely the right three.
Fitz,
yeah,
you agree with me?
I agree. There have been wide receivers that had a year or two. There's been wide receivers that had pockets of years that I think were really good. But I think you're right. The hardest part to do with this is to separate some of the conversation when you talk about, the greatness. It's hard to separate some of the stuff we've seen off the field post Pittsburgh. But yeah, I think that these three are the right three. In my mind, it feels like, man, there's these little pockets. Larry Fitzgerald was the toughest one for me when I saw your list. Like, and for me, it was really Larry Fitzgerald versus T.O. But I do think that there's this moment of we sometimes forget, especially wide receivers of size now have become so dominant. We forget just how hard it was to stop T.O. wherever he went. So I think you got it right. I think tight end was the tougher one. Like, Gronk, fine. But, like, again, recency bias. Like, I just watched Kelce do this over and over and over again. That was the toughest one when I saw your list that I was like, I don't know how you decide between what we've seen between Gronk and Kelce. It really, that one was brutal to me.
I've always said this about Gronk, that this is why he's the best tight end I've ever seen. If Gronk never caught a pass for that New England Patriots team, he would still have value as a tight end. That's how good of a blocker he was. Like, he would have been like, hey, Gronk caught 4 passes for 28 yards this year, and he was one of our best players. Like, I mean, Gronk was unbelievable as a blocker and also happened to set records as a receiver at tight end. Like, it was he was just a phenomenal, unbelievable player. Somebody this week on Twitter, because it's slow news day, play the graphic, that they put out, like, if you could put an 11-on-11 team of the clones of the same guy, who would win? I thought about Gronkowski, because he could do everything. Like, he could legitimately do everything on the field, like very, very few NFL stars have done.
Okay, so we agree on the offensive side. There's one person you left off the defensive side of the ball that is absolutely a travesty. We'll get to it after we take another quick break. Welcome back, gentlemen. Let's pick up the defensive side of the ball as you look at the all quarter century team from Frank Schwab. Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, Warren Sapp is your defensive lineman. Your edge rushers, Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt. Your linebackers, Ray Lewis and Luke Kuechly. Corners, Darrell Revis, Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson. And, of course, your safeties, Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu. I'm sitting here looking at it saying there's only one person in history that's ever been named to two All-Pro, two different positions, All-Pro in the same year, and that's Khalil Mack. Like, how the hell is Khalil Mack not on this list? You can put Khalil Mack in multiple positions for the quarter century team, and Khalil Mack still deserves to be on this team. And that's the heartbreak I understand of he was traded by my beloved Raiders. But how you don't have Khalil Mack on this list somewhere, you missed, Frank. You just flat out missed.
Khalil Mack's a heck of a player. I understand the argument for sure, but who are you taking off? I don't think Khalil Mack was ever better than Myles Garrett or TJ Watt. And I've gotten actually a lot of pushback. The one name that comes up, there's been two that I've gotten the most pushback on. One we'll get to. It's in the special teams. The other one is why don't I have Von Miller on this team? And it's like, I get it. Von Miller was awesome. I can't take TJ Watt or Myles Garrett off this team, though, if we're talking about edge guys. So maybe Gojo can tell me I'm wrong, too. But yeah, it was that. Yes, Khalil Mack was awesome. Von Miller was awesome. I don't know how I get away from taking those two defensive player of the years off of my team, though.
No, yeah, you're not going to get that argument from me either here. TJ Watt, respecter. Myles Garrett, like, there should be no conversation. There should be no worry. Those questions are answered every time the guy takes his shirt off during the offseason and reminds you that there has just not been many things built like him in the history of this league at that position. So, no, I got no issues with the D-line there. Very happy to, every time Luke Kuechly's name comes up, because, again, I know the career length for him was some bit of a discrepancy for some people. But that was a guy like I got to play against in college, and watching him in the NFL, there just aren't many people like that. That was like Peyton Manning's brain and a linebacker, and a guy who, despite being a white guy playing linebacker and all the things that we usually couch them with, was a ridiculous athlete and a guy
I've never seen an inside linebacker that could track like him. Like you try to run to the outside, and it's like Kuechly is just like blowing you up. Like it's like, how do you run away from this guy? He's everywhere on the field. And yeah, so to your point, like I don't like football is a really, really difficult sport, as you know, as everybody knows, is a violent sport. Injuries happen. I don't like holding injuries against guys. I don't hold it against Gronk that he had a shortish career. I definitely don't hold it against Kuechly that concussions shortened his career.
To your point about tracking, we played Luke when he was at BC in 2011, and I'll never forget that game for two reasons. One is because Luke, before every play, was accurately calling out where the ball was going to go. The rest of his teammates, unfortunately, weren't as good as him, and so we were still having some success moving the football, but he got up after one play, and he yelled at his teammates. He was like, I'm literally telling you where the ball's going, and we kind of looked over at them. And we're like, he's right. But the other one was we had put in a play. So you run those tunnel screens for wide receivers, and a lot of times people will build in that alert flip where your running back will flare out and the wide receiver will pitch it to him. We hadn't shown that on tape all year, and we put it in for that game to try and mess specifically with Luke. And he ran out straight at our wide receiver, never broke stride, and tackled the running back for like an 8-yard loss on that play. Like he knew right away. He's like, oh yeah, there's no chance he's holding on to that, and blew right past him and annihilated the play. It was one of the most impressive football plays I had ever seen, and is just like one small example of all the stuff we've seen on NFL Films highlights over the years from dude.
Producer Stone has weighed in and said Bobby Wagner over Kuechly 10 times out of 10. Frank?
I love Bobby Wagner. I do love Bobby Wagner, but
do you?
I think at their peaks, at their yes, I have him as a third best linebacker of the last 25 years. I think that's okay. That's why people are like, how disrespectful you didn't put this guy on the team. I'm like, well, I think he's probably the second best of his position in the last 25 years. There's nothing wrong with that. Bobby Wagner's awesome. I do enjoy Bobby Wagner in his career a lot. But Kuechly's peak was just, you don't see that level from a linebacker very often.
Also, shout out to you for putting J.J. Watt on this list. I saw the ESPN list, didn't have him on there. I'm like, there have been three guys that have won Defensive Player of the Year three times, and he's one of them. Like, how are we doing this?
Yeah, J.J. Watt was breaking the game at some point. I will go to my grave saying the biggest travesty in NFL MVP history is J.J. Watt not winning in 2014 when that was when the voters just decided, you know what, guys, we're just calling it a day. We're just going to pick quarterbacks from now on. Nobody else has a chance. Don't even apply, because J.J. Watt was the best player in football in 2014, without any doubt in my mind, and I will die on that hill for the rest of my life. J.J. Watt not being on any one of any type of this type of team is absolutely wrong. It's just wrong. Like, that's all there is to it.
Named to the All-Pro team at two positions on the defensive side of the ball in the same year, 107.5 career sacks on some terrible football teams with absolutely no help, and still dominating. That's fine. It's fine. What we learned today is Frank Schwab hates Khalil Mack. Khalil, that's the only proper takeaway. Frank Schwab is anti-Khalil Mack. We're absolutely never anti-Mike Golic Jr. Obviously, you see it again behind him. You can check him out, Golic and Golic, every afternoon, hanging out on FanDuel. You can also follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Golic Jr., as in Mike Golic Jr. Easy. You can follow Frank at Yahoo Schwab. I'm at Jason Fitz. Someday Frank's just going to go to at Frank Schwab, and I won't screw it up. Anything else, Gojo, you want us to plug? Anything else out there that the world needs to know about other than your amazing daily show?
No, appreciate it. 3 to 5 Eastern. Me and Dad trying to have a little bit of fun the way you guys are here. Unfortunately, I haven't coaxed Dad over to the Bald Brotherhood side either, so I had to come get my fix here today with Frank, which was greatly appreciated. So thank you, sir. No, and you too, I guess.
Your dad's lettuce is too perfect to shave it off. Like that zaddy doesn't need to be bald. Thanks for hanging out with us. Rate, review, subscribe. You know the drill. Make sure you give us all the positive mojo. We'll be back next Tuesday. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us so much. Have a great week.